We're gonna once again kind of go a bit off script ish here. Let's go ahead and wait for that. Do that. Share. Let's go here. Here. And then have some restream chat. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, I think we're all set here. So, yeah, what's going on, everyone? Chris Bushman back with another stream. And again, this is a bit of an impromptu stream, though. This isn't out of desperation to beat an old game this time, but more of a tour of more technology and something I think I've toured a little bit before, but now we got a little bit better handle on. And, yes, a streaming costume. I'm sure it feels exactly like that. But we're looking at the VFX-1 headset running on our Socket 7 machine. So there are quite a few things I kind of want to cover here. Some in terms of games that are compatible, some that are with driver setup, and just sort of overall what's available for this headset here. Now, part of it is I've been, for maybe at least a couple years now, been working off and on with getting things refurbished with this particular headset. Functionally it worked, but it was about identifying correct video cards. Recently I got the ear pads replaced on this because they were falling apart, and I fabricated a new pad over here with some foam and vinyl wrap just to get this in a spot to where it's reasonably useful without completely just being a pain to use. And that's kind of the story a lot with the VFX-1 in general, is that there's a lot of finicky setup to get this working the way you'd want to, mostly because of compatibility and when it came out. The headset itself, I think it was targeted around 1995, 1996, and that was like just at the cusp of a lot of the crazy enhancements in graphics, graphics cards and such. And as a result, this came out in an era where you were dependent on feature connector, but basically a video mode bus on a given graphics card to try to overcome issues with trying to connect via an ISO slot, and advances from just using VESA video modes to having now like graphics APIs and moving on to PCI and AGP and all of that. That left this thing in the dust fairly quickly without further enhancements, which we can get into that a bit later. But on the whole, from a retro collector game hobbyist perspective, it requires a little bit of setup and experimentation to find just the right configuration to get this thing going at least as well as I do right now. But there are also enhancements that can be made in the future. So let's actually get a little bit into what we have going on driver-wise with the system first, because I think that's actually really important with this particular setup, and something I tried doing with this system in particular. This was in a previously much more powerful retro computer, a Slot 1 Pentium 3 system. But with what I was needing to do to have this thing work properly, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. I was kind of holding either one system back or another, or swapping video cables. It didn't make any sense. So we kind of come down to what we have here, which is we're using a ArcLogic 1000 PV PCI card. So what's notable about the choice in video card for this particular device, it's twofold. One, something that ideally would be on PCI, because you'll be able to take advantage of as much bandwidth as you can for that video card, since that's going to be driving any kind of graphics going through this thing with how it's set up right now. That being basically a ribbon cable coming out of the feature connector of the video card into a separate ISA card, which is called the VIP card. Basically, that's the interface for all of the telemetry coming from the headset and dealing with the video signal coming from the video card itself. But because of the limitations, you really need to have as much bandwidth as possible to get the most you can out of a graphics mode. Because while I haven't hit many instances of slowdown or frame rate loss, there's definitely a hard ceiling in terms of graphics cards that are actually compatible. Like the Arc Logic, for example, I think it's like a 2 megabyte graphics card that is really aimed towards like CAD applications and things like that. Very good 2D, very clean signals, and very on-spec VESA video modes, which is what makes it ideal for something like this. You're looking at like S3 Trio 64 cards tend to be somewhat compatible. A number of ATI Rage cards are probably on the upper end, though a lot of their video quality is also kind of not great. There's a ATI Rage 2 Plus that I was using for a while that had artifacts constantly in the headset with what it would be rendering, and it worked. It gave me an availability of an ATI graphics API through the card, but it really didn't look good. The clearest image I've had so far has been with this ARC card. So you kind of hit that weird limit of you're not going to get a very large memory capacity for the card driving the headset, given the time, given using the VIP card, and many times they're kind of just before you start getting a lot of the proprietary graphics APIs coming out. So if you're trying to drive something that would be taking advantage of those, you really don't have that available for the headset as is. Besides that, with this particular system, because of that, I wanted to have an actual 3D accelerator of some kind, and this is where something like a Voodoo really comes in handy, because if I want to have a graphics accelerator, I'm actually doing the same thing with my PowerPC G4 Mac. It's where I can have a 2D card separate from the 3D card. The 2D card has some special functionality or some things that really don't make it up to spec on its own in terms of 3D games. But because of acting through the pass-through, everything's connected to the same VGA port in terms of video output. Since it's a different connection for the headset, video feed's coming in differently, but I'm not having to swap things out the monitor or anything like that. And if I want to play something without the headset and use Glide or something, the Voodoo's a great choice for this kind of situation. So you have that standard sound here, got an OPL3 compatible card. Most of the headset and their other accessory, which is known as a Cyberpuck, which is basically some sort of motion sensing mouse replacement with 3 buttons on it, act as joysticks in many applications in the Windows environment and in DOS as well, if it doesn't have a proprietary driver along with it. So many times you'll see when we go to, say, game controllers, we're going to have the Cyberpuck and the headset set up here for joysticks. Now, along with that, we also have a joystick as well. This is going to be the CH Flight Stick Pro, which, fun fact, is what the 3DO basically uses as well for its joystick. That's going to come in handy when you get into flight sims, where you're not really going to be using the Cyberpuck or the mouse necessarily. You're kind of getting into more traditional flight sim DOS games, but you want to take advantage of any kind of movement or possible 3D imagery coming from the headset. So these end up being some of the common configurations I've found with these Windows 98 systems, which is kind of hitting the upper end of this unit in terms of at least hardware. So that's kind of the environment we're working within. This has 128 megabytes of RAM, which is plenty for what I'm doing here for this system. But let's get into some games. So I guess I can bring up Quake first, because that's kind of one of the more common games we start talking about with the VFX-1. You know what? Let's talk about drivers first. I think drivers are going to be a better way to go first. So VFX-1 has a number of driver versions. I have 2 of the versions installed here, though right now my auto exec and everything's configured for driver 2.16. That seems to be the latest reference driver that they have here. So this driver package includes some Windows 95 drivers, which gave me like the VFX-1 config exe here, along with the drivers you saw in Device Manager. And then it gives you a DOS driver here. There's a setup application that can actually be launched from this as well. And then a number of batch files that correspond with some demos that typically come packaged with the VFX-1. That includes ROT, that includes apparently Top Gun's in here. There's a few others in this particular package that were not originally with what I had. But I believe Dark Forces 2 is in here. There's Apache. There's, I think it's Apache 3 that is compatible. Magic Carpet demo. There's a Doom demo. There's a Heretic demo. Mech Warrior 2. Things like that. But again, these are all demos of games, which I believe I have in the older driver package here. Yep. So yeah, we have like Magic Carpet, Descent, Doom, Flight Unlimited, Heretic. Heretic. Locust, Mech Warrior 2, Rot, SK. What is SK again? That is Super Karts. Yeah, I think it's like some sort of kart racing game. And many of these I haven't quite set up yet because I was focusing on some of the retail games I have first. This is some sort of World War II flight game, I believe. Wings of Glory? Yeah. But, or is that World War I? I think it's World War II. Anyway, so that's kind of what you start getting into with the actual driver packages and the demos and such with the VFX-1. Along with that, you also have archive files that people have had over time with the VFX-1 from news groups, things like that. And that'd be where you have documentation, which are copies of the manuals. We have the various driver packages here. So you have 2.16, 2.15. Excuse me. And it looks like you have 1.95 and 1.98, which again, I haven't messed with, but these could prove useful as one starts going through game compatibility in case it's a situation to where you have older drivers that need to be loaded up for the device. Now, I haven't gone as deep into each game yet to see what's ideal for it, but I guess it's 2.15 and 2.18. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what all of these are here. I was assuming they were older drivers, but that one's saying 2.15. So maybe that's like a Windows 95 and not Windows 98 install it's talking about there. Anyway, different drivers. And so it might be a situation to where different drivers are needed per game because of when the implementation was done on a per game basis, and there have been changes to the drivers through like that short period of time of like 1995 to 1998, I think is the last one. That's 2.16. But there's also other game drivers as well that go beyond the demos, so you start getting the Blood. Quake 2 has an implementation of having a video mode go through the headset, and I believe VR mouse support, though no stereo 3Ds there. There's alternative drivers for Quake. There's Jedi Knight. And then there's, this is I want to say, this one here. This is the feature connector driver for S3 cards to enable those. And then this is, it's a helicopter game basically, and there's a patch for that as well. So there have been some other game drivers dug up over time. Into miscellaneous, you have what is, I believe, a demo of 3D with this. Driver used with this. Make sure you install your drivers. Mars 3. So this should provide a panoramic view of the surface of Mars. Pictures taken from Mars. So, yeah, in theory, we should be able to just type Mars 3 bat. I don't see Mars 3 bat, but I guess we get to do this. Let's try it. And it says in Mars this is a different panoramic building, but you get to at least try out some of the tracking. The 3D is not quite show up the way I would expect on the headset. It seems to be popping in and out a little bit. But this is sort of the nature of getting into some of the drivers of the headset sometimes. Did it just zoom in? Did I do that? Oh, is this the mouse? Interesting. So the Cyberpunk allows me to zoom in and out, I guess. That's cool. But you also have some demos like that that I think are very dependent on driver version, basically. Then we get the SDK, which this is, from as far as I could tell when I looked at years ago, this is the SDK for the VFX-1. So we have an install for it. We're not going to go into everything here. But yeah, it's DOS as well as Windows 95. And then you have some direct input drivers, which is basically what's being used in Device Manager, I believe. And yeah, so if one wanted to make a demo for or something to work with this, you could. And we have one right here. So I guess that'll be the first game we look at is Grid 3D. Now this is something made early 2010s? Or it's it may have been 2018 actually. This might have been 2018 when this was made. And this is like a little simple arcade DOS game that is compatible with this headset. How this runs, you load up setmode.com, which apparently sets up the mode for stereo, the type of video mode to go to the headset, the game itself, and then I pick low res mode because the lower resolution tends to work better with this headset. And we'll do the Forte VFX-1. Press space to continue, absolutely. And from the screen there, you get kind of that dual look, but it is wonderful stereo 3D for me here. Like this shows up as a three-dimensional space in the headset. Which is awesome. And this ends up also being probably one of the best examples of how 3D works in this. I have found, just because I think there's a lot of games that just don't actually have the they have a stereo video mode. But this one does. Press Q to quit, Q to quit. And then no matter what you put in for letters, it does ass. Because of course it does. But that's Grid 3D. Like, that's probably the first thing we can really show off for the VFX-1. Up next, let's actually do a great native compatible game, and this is going to be Descent version 1.4. So right out of the box, I think it is starting at version 1.4. It might be a little bit earlier than that. Descent supports the VFX-1. Now I'm just going to play the view demo here because I have not set up any of the controls for Descent. So I have no idea how it's going to control yet. but this guy gives you a good idea of a video mode that might look like on stream, as it looks in perfect 3D on my setup. Like this one is just perfect, three-dimensional viewpoint. And this kind of stereo video mode that it does is probably the best and cleanest implementation I've seen happen on this headset. And it makes it at least somewhat streamable too, because you do get at least something showing on the screen. Another advantage too is that with Descent in particular, these are very basic shapes for Descent, and because of that, it's very easy to see figures. You get that sense of depth really nicely, and all these long tunnels and explode. Like all the sprites are flat, of course, but like the tunnels are 3D and everything. It's a really cool effect. It looks really awesome. And it just works right out of the box. And a number of games are kind of like that, to where they have support right out of the box for the headset, and it just ends up being a really nice experience, honestly, and it makes it a lot easier on me to set it up. Another one that works fairly well out of the box will be MechWarrior 2, actually, and all of its expansions, but we'll start with MechWarrior 2 in particular. So as you probably know, MechWarrior 2 has 1.5 million releases, depending on the type of release it was, if it was for a particular video card, if it was the Titanium remake, if it's for Windows 95 or DOS, all kinds of binaries out there. But if you go back to flat plane MS-DOS, MechWarrior 2 gets it done. Let's go to, I think it's going to be just straight up Mech 2 we start up. And note that all these games are working very well in DOS mode, just from a Windows environment. All these videos and everything play perfectly fine in this headset. Like, video playback is clear. Crystal clear. No artifacts. Sound is great. That's a big advantage of having the sound card I have in here, that being an OPO3, sort of the time ISA sound card. Everything is found, there's no artifacts in the sound, and it just all works well. Like, I can live out of the headset playing MechWarrior 2 if I got it set up right. Now that's the thing too, is I haven't played MechWarrior 2, so I don't know much of the controls. I probably focus mostly on getting a game in general set up.
Register Suco identity.
I can read text in the headset, which with the Rage I couldn't. So that's just amazing to me. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go to training. We were going to go to training. What the heck? Doesn't want to work. It's possible. Here, let me try to actually go into DOS to run MechWarrior 2 real quick. Because before this was working fine out of Windows, but it not doing that right now kind of blows. Especially when I'm trying to show, like, hey, look at how this thing works. So let's jump into DOS real quick. Which I did set up with a mouse. And these are all my sound settings. By default, this card sets everything at IRQ 9 for some reason, which no game defaults to. So that's kind of a pain. Let's go to, I think it's Mech 2. I think it's MechWarrior 2. Oh, sorry. I'm getting where color artifacting in the headset from doing pure DOS, which happens sometimes too. Well, let's see if we can at least get into a game.
Register Simco identity.
So that's what happens sometimes too. It's like depending on when I boot up or something, everything might cooperate or it may not. Let's see if it at least gets me into a game. It looks like it will. Okay. Which we can at least demonstrate the headset movement a little bit. The color is completely off, but it is actually outputting.
Now you wouldn't even think of upsetting me in my home, would you?
I think.
Of course you
I don't think it's in a stereo.
do what I say when I say, and I won't get upset.
In a stereo video mode,
I
though.
do bad things when I'm upset. So, what do you say we do a little nav computer training?
This is all kind of messed up in my. The color is messed up in my headset because I'm going through DOS, but at the very least.
Do not just sit there, cadet. Punch N on the console to target nearest nav.
At the very least, it does go through the headset natively. So, sometimes I found with this, I either have to restart the computer if I get into a weird state with the headset upon boot up, or I've read online to people sometimes just unplug the VIP plug they have in the back of the headset, unplug it, plug it back in. That seems to correct things. Initialization of the headset becomes a bit finicky sometimes. That is a reality of this. Hence, also, like, do driver versions matter, things like that. For example, MechWarrior 2 usually work perfectly fine in this through the Windows environment, but not this time. But it does boot up in DOS, still show it does do it. In terms of your question, would it be worthwhile to test a breadth of video cards to give a good list of compatible cards? It's possible. The parameters are not 100% known to me in terms of what video cards will work with the VIP card. And I guess we'll get into the alternative option with this headset to actually maximize both video cards you can use and actually get you into some newer environments and newer implementations of what I think is probably the compatibility part of this, a stereo video mode. And I'll link this to you in Discord, Sam. Let's see if I have it up here real quick. I'm hoping I do. Yes. So, could one test video cards? Yes. And I think even could go as far as, if one would need to, modify seemingly compatible cards to have their output what you would need for the VIP card in the system to initialize, and then use the current hardware flow that's happening right now that I'm using right now. The alternative, and I think probably the longer form, more feasible, more option-rich approach would be recreating what was an option later on, which was called the, I think it's called the VGA box or VIP box. But basically, it replaces the ISA card you would use with this headset with an external box that would take VGA output from a given graphics card and bypassing the whole feature connector thing altogether. So when you start getting to questions of, hey, I have a 3D accelerator that has like certain APIs that outputs or that renders within, I want to take advantage of that. Or more so, APIs like Glide have built-in not built-in wrappers, but they have wrappers available to do stereo 3D video modes to have like the alternate image thing that you saw on the stream there. So I can use other VR headsets. This would be the solution to be able to take all those in and display them as a 3D video mode in here and get you out of the business of the feature connector, basic video mode thing altogether, because that in of itself is a bit of a nightmare. Let's check this calibration, see what we're looking like color-wise. Yeah, everything's looking good in the headset now. Good. And I'm going to even go out on a limb and say that MechWarrior 2 will now work good. Watch me eat my words. Through Windows.
Register Simcoe.
Don't make a fool of me. Yeah, see. Reinitialization now we're in it.
I like to think of this lovely place as my home. Now, you wouldn't even think of upsetting me in my home, would you? Of course you wouldn't. So do what I say when I say, and I won't get upset.
I think at some points too, depending on the game that's loaded, impacts the state of the drivers with the headset as well. To the point where if I load certain games, I believe they will put the headset in a bad state. Which could be what Grid 3D does, for example. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, MechWarrior 2 works. That's some of the deals with the drivers, and like I mentioned with the VIP box / VGA box. That would be, like, I think, a future state of using this in a real retro situation. Because then you get from, like, a limited list of games that have built-in specific drivers for this, which, aka specific video modes for a freaking ISA card underneath the hood. Now you get into, does VGA mode output a stereo video mode? If so, this will consume it. Will you get head tracking? Maybe, maybe not. But you at least get to have then a 3D, basically a glorified 3D headset with AKG headphones built in, which that's not a bad deal. And I think, kind of, again, the combination of those two things is a good place to be. Anywho. So, we have that for MechWarrior 2. There are some different driver implementations for games for the VFX-1. And one of the examples that gets... This is probably the weirdest example I have on hand for how to set up a given game when you have an external driver. Is going to be Flight Unlimited 2. So Flight Unlimited 2 is a Windows game. Unlike the examples we've seen so far that put to alt DOS, this is actually using a Windows driver. But this Windows driver is not as it seems, so to speak. So we'll go into the setup of how you set this game up, what it's lying about in terms of its directions, and what you actually need to do to get this thing running. So let's go into, I want to say it's the VFX-1 folder. Not now. Go to game drivers. So we're looking at Flight Unlimited 2. And this is kind of a common experience I've found with some of these drivers. The directions aren't the greatest. So this makes it sound pretty easy what you're going to do. Flight Unlimited 2, you're going to copy the provided VFX patch exe file into the directory. You're going to run the program, and you're going to select a free hardware port. Example, patch, and then give a hex value, basically, for the given port. There's also a provided VFX port driver file, which basically I think this is where Flight Unlimited 2 is just using a separate driver altogether for this. Into Windows System directory. In my case, it's just Windows, because I believe that's where all of the drivers are at. Either way, where all the VXD files are at, they're going to be on path. You drop this in. And then you go to your system INI file and you add the following line to actually load up the driver. You're going to have VFX port, the value that you used for patch, aka what is going to be the device address for the device port for the device, and then what actual driver you're loading up for said device. You reboot the system, and then the patch exe that's provided or that's created from the patch up here. It's going to be called VFX-1.exe. You run that, you get Flight Unlimited 2. Let's see here. The zero setting of the headset occurs when you zero set from the control panel on your desktop. Remember to reboot after changing an INI file. This will remove the ability to use the point of view hat switch in favor of the headset if you want the POV hat. You have to run the old version of Flight 2. Then you must also put your flight control stick on the last entry under the Windows joystick panel. So in theory, you should have a headset, cyberpuck, your stick yoke, and throttle. It's not required to have the headset or cyberpuck assigned to any device. The port driver will read the headset values directly. That any time you've selected required to be patched hardware, you have to repatch the exe. And this is, at least up to this date when this came out, was version 1.03, I think, for 1.3 for the game. And in this case, I have version 1.4 because that was the driver I could find that would actually run on the system. Everything else would just crash. So that's what it tells you, though. So you are identifying a free port. You're running this against the port. Drop the driver into the system directory. Add its entry to the system INI file. Reboot. You're done. When I originally did this this was with the device already installed, and I just chose a free port, and it did work. Got weird colors in the headset. Nothing seemed to be as I would expect. What it's supposed to be is that you will notice in calibration here that if we set up the VIP port in the DOS driver, we have port 260 set up, and IRQ7, so on and so forth. That 260 is not just what you set up for a DOS driver. That is a jumper setting on the VIP card to tell you exactly which port you're using for the headset. Anything uses the headset, anything uses the VIP card, you're using that. So what it's trying to tell you is, oh no, you have to set the system, you have to set everything to the port in which you're using this in. So that's what you got to do. So if you go to, say, I want to say it's going to be in just straight up Windows. Say System INI. Yeah. Right now, I have this set up for 280. Okay. No, that is not what my headset is set for. Not one bit. But I have it set for 280. Flight Unlimited's in. We're going to go to here. C drive. We're going to go to, I think it's Program Files and Flight 2. Yep. And we're going to go into VFX Fly. It should be pre-configured for port 280. Now, things look normal here for you. Color looks really weird, but that's also normal on this. When I'm going through the menus and the cinematics for Flight Unlimited 2 in the headset, colors look all wonky. That's fine. We're going to do a quick flight. I'm going to say fly. Sounds good. There's an upper limit to the resolution that can be piped into this, so I can't go any higher, I think, than 640 by 480. Regardless. We're loading up Flight Unlimited 2. Cool beans. Monitor looks great. Inside the headset, actually looks like it's all color, which is the first time that's happened. So, okay, that's weird. Am I a liar now? Maybe I'm a liar.
Clear.
Am I a liar now? Apparently so. So that's cool. Usually what happens is I get weird colors in the headset, and I have to switch over to a conflicting port. But not this time.
University, traffic, Arrow 3 Tango Hotel, left base, runway 34, University. Sonoma Sky Park, traffic, trainer 2 uniform, left downwind, Sonoma Sky Park.
Stop, traffic, Arrow 2 Alpha Bravo, right downwind. Stop.
Now the brightness is way too high on this, but still, it works. Hat switch still works, by the way.
Final runway 25, Rio Vista.
University, traffic, Arrow 3 Tango Hotel, final runway 34, University.
If I'm not mistaken, this is all around San Francisco.
Rio Vista, traffic, trainer 007, taxi, runway 25, Rio Vista.
Look at that view. Look at that view, guys. Look at that view. Again, it's not stereo 3D. I currently don't have the rotation or pitch or anything with the helmet to replace the hat. So it's basically just a video mode going straight to the helmet.
Traffic, Arrow 2 Alpha Bravo, right base, runway 31, stop.
I guess we just level off.
Sonoma Sky Park, traffic, trainer 2 uniform, left base, runway 26, Sonoma Sky Park.
Stop, traffic, Arrow 2 Alpha Bravo, final, runway 31, stop.
The only things are pretty legible in the headset. Looks pretty clear. I'm just getting rid of all the throttle.
Sonoma Sky Park, traffic, trainer 2 uniform, final runway 26, Sonoma Sky Park.
Sonoma Sky Park, Unicom, trainer 88 Zulu.
We had no head tracking. I think it's supposed to be there, but it doesn't quite happen. Again, I wasn't even expecting that to load at all in terms of colors that I saw. Now, I think part of it is this need to actually move up. So I think that needs to be Cyberpunk. And this needs to be VFX-1 headgear. I think that's what needs to happen here. We'll see if that makes a difference in Flight Unlimited. I'm not sure. We could try that shortly. But so here's what happens though. If I set this to the port that the VIP card is set for, there becomes a resource conflict. So the DOS driver dies because basically something else is accessing the exact same device port. And what I was doing before was I was actually keeping a backup system INI file for that very reason. And which makes sense because the DOS driver gets loaded up on auto exec. And then in the Windows environment, the VIP port driver gets loaded up in Windows under the same hardware port. So it's like, yeah, that's exactly what should happen. And so I would basically, if I was going to do Flight Unlimited, I would change the system INI file to what I had backed up to this setting here, basically. Restart the machine, run Flight Unlimited, and then when I'm done, switch the INI file back, restart the machine, DOS driver's fine. Now another solution to that, what I was thinking would have been load up the VFX-1 driver on a per game basis. That doesn't solve the Flight Unlimited thing, which just loads it in Windows and then it's there. But If it's working as is now for whatever reason, which admittedly is kind of part of what always happens anyway. No, I don't want to print. I don't want to print it. I didn't. Whatever. So, I don't know. We'll see if ordering the joysticks matters here. If it still works. Again, things are so weird and finicky with this sometimes. A bit unexpected. It could also be that that part of the driver is broke on the newer version of... Yeah, see, like, this is me using the joystick. So, I don't know. I will say that this was not... The head tracking was not working when I had set it to a different port anyway. So, I've never had head tracking work on this. It could be a version of Flight Unlimited 2 that just doesn't do it. Who knows? Anyway, that's Flight Unlimited 2. You get video in the headset, so it does make it to feel more like a enclosed cabin space, which is kind of cool for this kind of game. But you're not really stretching the legs of the headset necessarily either. So let's get into another game. In terms of bad instructions, let's talk about the jankiness that is Magic Carpet. So, when dealing with Bullfrog Productions and the things they do, there's always a degree of jank, I would say, that comes along with the ride, for one reason or another. For Magic Carpet, for example, besides the fact I have Magic Carpet Plus, that's the CD release I have here. Number one, the game is built to run off the CD because reasons. I guess there's a time when hard drive space was hard. Which means there's no install, you just have local configuration files installed initially, and then you just kind of go with it. Which, that's cool, man. Anyway. But I went ahead and copy and pasted this somewhere anyway. Where did I copy and paste that at? Sorry, without my glasses, I'm blind, so I'm sort of doing this. There we go, Magic Carpet. So, I installed it anyway. This is another game that has native support for the headset. What's really inspiring, though, is in the instruction booklet how they tell you to set up the VFX-1. Page 4. Setting up the VFX-1. If you select VFX-1 as your control method, follow these instructions for its installation. Install the VFX-1 disk onto your hard drive. We have done that. You can select the VFX-1 from the config screen in the game. The only problem is that network cards clash with the VFX-1 and sound cards, so I only got the VFX working by going into the game with no sound. So, this isn't like, here's the definitive way how you do it. This is how I did it. Shrugs. Plug the Cyberpuck into the serial port and the keyboard. Okay. So, it depends on the version of the VFX-1 they're using here, because the Cyberpuck did come as like a separate controller you could use, I think, in a serial port later on. This one doesn't do any of that. So whatever. This is through the headset, so I get to now ignore that because this person's personal experience setting up the headset back in, what year was this? 1994. So this could have been an early version of the headset regardless. In your auto exec, put the command set VIP port to 300. 300 is the default port address. We are obviously not doing that, and the VIP card is not even set for that. In your installed VFX directory, run the program VFX-1 and add the Cyberpuck serial port number. If it's plugged into COM2, you would type VFX-1, 2. So I'm assuming an early flavor of this, it was all separate. You set up as a separate device. Okay. Sync your monitor to 60 Hz by running the appropriate program. There is no appropriate program listed. I don't know what it's talking about. If you select VFX and grab this pad, use the pad's yellow button to calibrate the headset. If you select VFX on its own, you must run the zero set program from the installed VFX directory. Again, this doesn't exist. This has to be an early version of the drivers. Once correctly installed, put on the VFX virtual headset. You can look up and down and roll your head from left to right to steer. Use a joystick to sidestep and move forward, backwards, and fire spells. Note: most of the above is Forte standard procedure for setting up the VFX, which, with the installed drivers I have, none of that is the standard way of setting up the headset. So that was the help I had going in with now playing Magic Carpet. Hey, in terms of, I'm trying to remember where it may have actually put. Yeah, so I think this was my setup. I had to manually set up my sound because it was not right. Of course. I don't think it's under language. I thought there was another config file for like what I have set up here. I would hope there was. But maybe there's not. Maybe there isn't. Which, that's fine. That's fine. Carpet.exe. Load it up. We pick our game we're going to play. This is sound. Remember Pentium? That was cool.
In its infancy, the whole of creation glimmered against the dark void. But one place in the universe...
Magic Carpet. And also, sounds great in the headphones. And also, everything shows up in the headset. Let's go, baby. So at least the video mode used loads up fine, right? This is Doc. Call me Doc. And we go inside the game. So, in the headset, I don't think it's stereoscopic 3D, as far as I can tell. On the back, it says you can toggle between 3D, stereogram, and normal modes with F10. So F10, got this. Is this the 3D mode? Is this normal mode? I don't know. I don't know about that. The digital sound doesn't sound great. In terms of the overall fidelity, or are you talking about like the quality itself sounds like gritty or something like that? Or like does the sound font sound pretty basic, like it's general MIDI or something? Because it might be set up for general MIDI right now. I had to do, again, some funky business to get sound going settings-wise, because it's all using like IRQ9. But that's also another game where I have video going into the headset. It sounds distorted on the stream. Okay. It's possible it does with the capture. It's going through a splitter right now. On the headset, it sounded crystal clear and fine. Oh, I see what you mean. It didn't sound distorted on my headset, so it might be with something with my capture device, which sucks, but dang, yeah. It's hard to have to review the stream, honestly. And I also noticed that, well, we have striping on the actual monitor footage, and the screen's gone in and out sometimes, so it might be where the capture device isn't happy with whatever it's trying to capture right now from my output. And that could be affecting the quality of the sound, because I've noticed the sound capture is directly tied to how relevant the capture device sees the video capture. So we could be experiencing some of that, unfortunately. But there is... Yes, so head tracking was working in Quake. That's right, Quake. We're going to do Quake. Quake, which has its own driver, has head tracking. I was like, didn't I demo Quake? Like, no, I played that before I booted up the stream, actually. So let's talk about Quake. So besides the panoramic picture thing you saw, there are games that demonstrate head tracking, so you can have at least a sanity check of, yes, head tracking does work. And probably one of the most consistent games to work on this for the VFX-1 in terms of most of the features. I don't have like a stereo 3D video mode going for Quake, but I have everything else going. Yeah, it's Quake. So there's a driver you put in here to get you a VFX-1 mode. There's VFX-1 for Quake, and then 95 DOS versus 95. DOS works better for me, so let's just show it. I have this set up right now to disable the Cyberpunk, but I will tell you the Cyberpunk does work for going forwards and side to side, but this, along with head tracking, is a bit of a mess, so without tweaking stuff, so I just have that turned off right now. Yeah, I should be able to do that. And you'll see head tracking. Up and down. Pretty cool. Now, I don't have any of the controls. I don't think I have mouse look or anything configured on this, actually. Let's customize some controls a bit, because I should really do that. Let's see here. And let's see where's jump at. Okay. I think that's all I need out of there. Was run on. I mean, I have mouse because of this thing, right? Cool. Well, we're gonna run sudo old school then. Or actually, no, I can do, I think. Does that work? No. I can do, yeah, alright. We'll do keyboard style then. First of all, yeah, look. I can look around. I can do fine aiming. I can tilt like that all around. Yeah, I've actually calibrated this a little bit. But I've definitely not gotten used to using the Cyberpunk, so I'm not, like, super keen on that. Maybe eventually. Haha. Yeah, so head tracking. Like, oh, there's that over there. What's that up there? That looks like something cool. But it's like the free look FPS sort of thing. I am not like used to that. Let's see here actually. Let me okay. There's music. It's just quiet. So, you know, the question, is it immersive in this usage? I think Quake... So, like, even using my Oculus, for example, I have a hard time using, like, a free head look as something that would be like a regular use compared to, say, a mouse look. Now, the advantage, I suppose, is that I get to aim around without getting sick to my stomach, because that is something that can definitely happen. Safety always off. Perfect. Let's try it again from the top. Hey, we don't need... I guess it doesn't always run on, so that doesn't help. Does it? There we go. Secret. Secret. Was that supposed to be like something there? No. I thought there was supposed to be like a chemical suit somewhere. Is it up there? I don't know. So could I get used to doing like a head aiming sort of thing? Yeah, sure. Probably. Is it intuitive? Not with the current setup of Quake. That's also speaking from someone who's just done the what you call it? The mouse look stuff for so long. That. I think if I had a wider FOV, it would probably make this feel a little more like I get to look around and search, because I don't really have that right now. That's a possibility, just sort of spitballing. I'll say, especially as someone who's played Quake a few times, trying to use something like the VIP mouse is just awful. Because it's inaccurate, it's clumsy, and you're just sort of waving around in the air. It works. It definitely does what it's made to do and function. It's just not a very accurate device. Anyway. Quake. So yeah, head tracking works in Quake. What else do I got here? So overall, with that being said, especially with Quake here, I feel like there are, overall, these games need to be tweaked and configured on a very individual basis to try to get everything working properly on them. I've seen the modes that I would expect to be present in one game or another to be there. Like, it's not like tracking's broken. It's not like video is broken. But it's just for whenever I am running a particular game, not everything seems to be there for whatever reason. And I think that comes down to some tweaking of what drivers are being used when. Definitely something like Magic Carpet. Magic Carpet basically made me feel like, okay, there are definitely significantly different eras of games that would be using this headset that exist, and I can't just assume that one driver set is probably going to get me all the way there. Let's look at another game that especially tries to forego the puck to have some kind of functionality in with the VFX-1 as like a 3D headset, as opposed to just something that you pump video into, but doesn't quite get there. This is Czar. Now, you've seen me post pictures about Czar quite a bit, because Czar in itself acts as a really great tech demo for a number of different video modes and headsets, with what I think is also an incomplete implementation of some of these. So, Czar. It's got a number of graphics modes. Start from the top. You got some VGA basic, 3020 by 200, which this guy is more than happy to take. You have a bunch of VGA-X modes of various flavors. Here's where we get into what I would use to actually test what VESA modes were available beyond some really crappy DOS applications. If the VESA modes weren't seen or available, these would be unpopulated and the game would yell at me. Yeah, I think that's fair. Direct hardware over software abstraction. And so you have these VESA modes. It has support for these SimUIs, which I think is what I have back there. So we have the availability of a 3D stereo set device or 3D BIOS compatible glasses. That could be something to look at in the future for these to have some stereo output that might actually work with the headset. If we look at the VFX-1, there are built-in video modes for this. We have our mono, which actually we're using right now, which this is just 320 by 200 being fed into the headset. It works. It's great. Here we are. We gotta wait for the next demo to load, I guess. We tried to do the 320 by 240 VFX stereo mode, however. We end up with this, which at first I thought was maybe a headset issue, but no. I believe this is a Czar issue, particularly because you'll notice half of the image is missing. Why is half the image missing? I have no idea. Could be a variety of reasons. Eyeglasses also has modes here. So, yeah, if I knew why that stereo mode doesn't work, I'd definitely do it. So I think compared to Let's just do this. Let's do S for head tracking. Head tracking on, brightness up there. Sounds great. Let's start game. Let's see how head tracking works in this. Does it work? Let's try it. We will accept. And see, we have head tracking. Pretty cool. Will allow me to cheat and get into stereo mode now? No. Half the image is missing. Don't know why. Let's see, Czar shows a demonstration of the head tracking. And I think this game actually works a little bit better for that, because the actual, like, environment is much larger for that. But this is an example of, I believe, an incomplete game. It's possible. I don't know the specifics of what is happening with that. And if that's the case, I wouldn't be able to begin to figure out why that's the case. Is that... like, I'm assuming it's a Czar issue, not my video card issue. Because that's what I've seen every time when I attempt to use said mode on a given video card. Now, that being said, let's try an experiment then. Let's try something crazy, yeah? Part of my setup here is using a helper application to have other video modes available. That'll be this UniVBE right here. So the reason why I have all those VESA video modes and all that available is because of this. Oops, not that. This. So part of whenever you're setting up an environment like this for the VFX-1, a lot of recommendations come in to use some sort of VESA video mode alternative driver to have more modes available. Right now I'm using Cytek's UniVBE 6.7 to do this. And I just have it set up in auto-exec that when it boots up, that's the very first thing it loads up, and then it does my VIP port, the interrupt, so on down the line. Okay? So, what we can do here then, let's run this out. Will this change anything? And this also was pre-configured, so there's like a file sitting on the system that when this executable is ran, it knows what kinds of modes to add based on the previous scan it did of my video card. Well, let's go ahead and restart. And we'll see what Czar says. Because it could be where if the other VESA video modes aren't seen, Czar will complain to me and say, hey, I get something like UniVBE to get these available if you want to use these modes, things like that. Maybe it's a possibility of, depending on what modes are set out there, perhaps it is trying to see that 320 by 200 stereo video mode as a as you said, interleave scan, like an interlaced mode of some kind or something. Or mixing things up of how it should be doing the 3D there. I still suspect, because of the consistency I've seen Czar run, that it's a Czar 1.0 issue with that particular driver, and that if I were to, say, get a 3D BIOS of some kind loaded up, that this might do stereo output. I wouldn't have the head tracking, but probably do stereo output and work just fine. Another possibility, because I haven't looked into them, I don't know what is involved for those kinds of BIOS drivers yet. I haven't only really thought about it until recently. Maybe that's something to where it would also help redefine or stabilize the particular stereo video modes that could be available, and truly give me all those stereo outputs that I would be seeking from games that weren't giving them to me. That's a possibility. But I don't know, to be honest. Let's go back to Czar. We're running the MMX optimized Czar. The output looks good in the headset so far. Nothing looks weird. The ones I've seen work were the ones you saw with two different frames on each eye. That was for Descent and for Grid 3D. So you see, VESA 2.0 is not detected. For the ARC, VESA 1 is. We go to stereo. Oh. Well now. Ain't that a treat? It works. So it was a driver issue. How about that? How about that? We have VFX-1 stereo mode working in Czar. That's how it's supposed to look right there, Sam. However it looks right now on the screen. Just like that. Let's frickin' go. That is 3D with mouse control, so if you want to get nauseous, that's the way. And it's struggling a little bit. Oh, but we in it, baby. And it's 3D. Oh my goodness, look at that jump. Woo! Wow, what am I getting hit by? Ah. Dude, this jumping is nuts in this game. I forgot about that. Like, this isn't a rocket jump or anything. Oh, gosh. You also run out of ammo super easy. Like, I have ammo, but I don't have all the guns. It's not to go search for that. But, yo! It works! Because I foolishly loaded up alternative drivers. Silly me. What was I thinking? Czar, I assumed wrong. I apologize. I was wrong. You can now see that Czar is a perfect example. Ramlazar. Now I'm kind of curious if Quake actually has stereo 3D. Or is it not going to have that? It's trying. Okay, Quake. Let's change the video options. So, Quake ain't looking great in whatever it's in. That's terrific. No, not there yet, Quake. Not there yet. No, not that one. That's not it. That's not gonna do it. No. 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 So, okay. Interesting. So, Quake, right there, like, it didn't like any of those video modes. And it's possible it doesn't do stereo, but yet here we are outputting something that looks like it's trying to do stereo, right? Now we're going to try Windows 95 Quake. Okay. Gonna try that. And it might look exactly the same, but still. It's got to look exactly the same, isn't it? Yeah, it's just no, no. But Quake could do at least a mono video mode there. So now we have another example of it kind of depends what you use, what's going to work. Which is an interesting place to be, of course. One final game we'll try out here. This is another older DOS game of weirdness called Mad Space. Mad Space is a arcadey shooter thing with story and cinematics. With stereo 3D comp Quake. We'll check that out later. Thank you, Sam. That guy opens up a whole new world, dude. But anyway, Mad Space. This worked before with the UDVBE drivers. Let's see what it does now. Still 3D. Still looking good, baby. It's really bright. We might need to kick that brightness down a little bit. There's a lot of cinematics, which are in 3D, by the way. Cinematics are in 3D. Let me not shake a fist at that. It's awesome. I might be skipping a lot of these, but this is awesome. Okay. Let's go with easy. There's also a lot of story. A lot of whatever this is. A lot of cinematic to get to. The game is actually not this complicated. I am skipping a whole lot. Is the mouse I use? Yeah. This, as far as I know, is the game. It's a gallery shooter using the mouse with all the glitz and glam of a 3D headset, which to me, I'm down for. Okay? Yeah, you say I get to sit here and shoot space things in 3D. Okay, I'm down to jam with that. And because my headset's adjusted well, 3D looks good, man. If you had to describe this as like a laser disc, this feels like a laser disc game. That's what this feels like. If you had to say, hey, we have a 3D laser active game, that's what this feels like. And I'm okay with that. And yeah, the 3D looks good, dude. When it's cooking, it's cooking. And notice maybe Magic Carpet now runs great in 3D. Head tracking still seems to be an issue. Probably, maybe, but I don't know, to be honest. Maybe it doesn't do head tracking if it doesn't detect its particular video mode. I don't know. There's still lots to learn, as you can tell. Mad space. If it's any evidence, I'm like accurately hitting these things in 3D, so that tells you how effective the 3D is. It's very effective. Again, the cinematics are in 3D also. Get out of town. This is a treat. Okay. I mean, the flashing red boxes also help quite a bit. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I wonder if there's a boss battle in this. That'd be kind of cool. Or is this like a really short game that we just beat all of a sudden? And then that's it? And I was like, oh, Mad Space, that was cool. Oh, let's talk about how awesome it was, and it's like a 15-minute game. Which, you know, like, granted, I don't have this on a high difficulty, but I'm not seeing where the challenge is right now. It's a fun spectacle. Still better than Seventh Guest. But do we get to a point where we're going to get like a... Yeah, we have a nice accurate control blaster. We have a nice readable targeting system. We have things that fly around, targets. Cool. What do we do after this? Where do we go from here? Am I just doing a high score gallery here? Are we just touring around this big old ship? I guess we're still just touring around the ship. You tell me. Hey, I got pre-rendered background here, okay? Are we getting close to something? There's a whole, like, I think of all the cinematics we've had, there's been a whole lot of build-up to do something. Are we a Star Wars now? Whoa, that was fast. This space is mad. Ah. Are we going in? Is this only the beginning? Is a whole new game just open up in front of us now that we're boarding the ship? Or are we just flying through a tunnel? I mean, it's definitely a spectacle of a game. Wait, hold up, what? We're free roaming. Oh, what? Is it WSAD? Yes, it is. And what? This is an F. What is this game? Alright, we need to recenter our tracking a little bit, but. Oh, it's mouse look too, okay. What? Okay, this. So let's pick that up. Got a mine pack. Oh, whoa, hey. What is... Whoa. Whoa. Mad Space is awesome. So, we got music now. Okay, we're gonna stop right there before we, like, spoil what should be an awesome stream, because, oh, like, we need to have that as a separate stream. Mad Space is awesome. It's got a slow start, but it don't give a fuck. It's like, we're doing this right. Okay, Mad Space. Okay, if you want to kill our app with a VFX-1, Mad Space. People say Quake. Just get out. We can play Quake all day with all kinds of stuff. Mad Space is like we put Laserdisc cinematic arcade shooter with FPS in it. I am game. That's all the good stuff. Yes, sir. Let's do that. Okay. Yeah, with that, let's see what Magic Carpet does real quick. Come on, yo. Let's get it. Mad Space. Yo. I'm glad I stuck it out for those levels. Oh, man. You're right, but it has all of, like, the really cheap, like, 3D rendered stuff. And it's so good. I mean, oh. Delicious. Let's go back to... I'll have to double check the set, make sure that works out of the box still. The set was working really good out of the box. Alright, Magic Carpet, let's see what you do now that we don't have the other drivers possibly interrupting things. And this might be terrible digital sounds. If it is, I apologize. Okay, headset's trying to do something. It's not doing it right now, but it's trying. I see double images, like, weird looking in there. Okay. Let's see what this does when we get to... Okay, it just doesn't work. Got it. Okay, Magic Carpet. So there are some games that still need to be looked at more closely in terms of getting something beyond a mono resolution. Oh, let's go. But yeah, so in conclusion, where we are at with the VFX-1 headset right now, pure hardware-wise, the headset is sound for the most part. Head tracking gets a little meh when you're trying to do calibration. That's something I didn't show, but it's not great for calibration. But on the whole, the head tracking becomes good enough with dead zones and stuff, how people implement it. That's passable. We have everything we need to actually wear the darn thing. It sounds good and it looks good with the right video card, in this case, the Arc Logic. Arc Logic, go with that. Everything looks nice, crisp, and clear. There are at least one indie game out there of modern time that uses the headset, and it's fun, and it works. And there's games along the way, especially the weirder, like Russian and Polish originated games that utilizes headset very well. Like Czar, I'm not sure where Dead Space originates from, but Dead Space definitely has an Eastern European release as well. And there are a number of games that seem to have support in various ways, but it really depends on the era it was in and how far along that support was. Like I mentioned before, the future of this is definitely when you get an external box and you can just basically start throwing a bunch of other stuff at it. I think it's a huge advantage. On top of the possibility of 3D BIOS or other 3D stereo driver options to start trying to get the most out of a stereo video mode in the headset. This is a execution environment that allows a lot of different kinds of driver and including video driver loading, as you saw with the Uni VBE, which at least provides some stability for mono modes, and as well as having some stereo modes work pretty well when you disable it, apparently. But that's kind of where everything is at. So none of it is straightforward, but that's also, as you've mentioned before, Sam, it's of the era for Windows 98 games. There's some documentation out there, people who've done a lot more than I have. Yes, so Night Dive re-released Mad Space on Steam as well as Czar. That's where I originally got them, from Steam purchases. And I think those purchases came with ISOs, if I'm not mistaken. If not, then I had to search for them, but then I burned those and used them on the system here. I've actually tried pinging Night Dive a couple times about various VFX-1 things, and I've never gotten a response. So, for what it's worth, there's that. But yes, Night Dive did re-release them on Steam. That's how I first discovered them, and then realized that, oh hey, these have headset support. What? This is weird. Well, time to do that, and here we are. So, yeah, and the combination of the VR headset compatible games and the Glide compatible games makes this particular system a really fun system to toy with. A lot of different kinds of game support with just enough hardware to have compatible sound options, things that sound good and look good, accessories to play with joysticks, as well as, like, of course, the headset and things like that. And it's like a cool, fun, of the era rig. There needs to be more tweaking and more investigation of how to get each game running optimally on the headset, and that's something I want to document as I go along, probably in Vogons, in the thread I've been doing right now, just to at least have something out there besides what's already out there, which is people refurbishing their headsets, looking for the correct video card, in the case of one individual, building their whole separate external box setup and doing their own development on the headset itself. So I think a good documentation point would be, okay, how do I configure my environment to run the headset proper to get the most out of it? And other enhancements for the future for the headset would be replacing the plastic lenses here for some glass microscope lenses that would give a little bit wider view of the field of the LCDs. Plus, it would just look clearer and better. These things are old. They're not bad, but there's definitely stuff in them. And then explore making the VIP box, basically. see if that leads to doing some stereo 3D video mode stuff through VGA and utilize this much more in a not just DOS and some Windows 98, but pure Windows 98 environment, and really leverage the glide aspect of this and start doing like glide stereo 3D mode stuff and just pump it out. That would be really cool. But that's pretty much it. There's some novelty to it, like the Cyberpunk, but there's some really fun, unique gameplay aspects to this, and things I like about even the Oculus, which is I can play known quantity games with a little bit of a 3D environment to it, and it's not too difficult to get going. Like, I feel like, at least being around a lot of the Windows 98 stuff, it's a bit par for the course a little bit in terms of having to dig through different documents, do the little archaeology, and then taking some time to invest in getting the headset feeling nice on the head and going into some games. So I think next steps will be finishing up what's on the docket right now for some PC gaming, and then slowly start taking these one at a time, get it set up ideally to the headset, and then do some streaming with it. Maybe figure out a better way of showing some of that footage beyond just a pulsating double image sometimes. But we can figure it out. But that's it. That's the tour of the VFX-1 as far as I know it right now. More in the future. It works. It's cool. Now I am from the future with the headset. But on that note, have a good night. Thanks for joining me for a quick tour, and play more games. Maybe try. Oh, imagine that. Okay, here's a goal. If I could have going through the Voodoo 1 on this system with a 3D mode, actually try 3D Tribes, because that uses glide rendering. That would be, yep, that would be interesting. Good? I don't know. Interesting? Sure. Either way, have a good night. Thanks. Bye.